This is a story of a man with a very strange fate.
I've always had a hard time getting into the modern version of point-and-click adventure games. With the focus shifting from puzzles to story and presentation, I have a bad habit of either ignoring the genre completely or just watching someone do a playthrough of certain games. There needs to be a certain charm with this kind of game to get me interested, which is why I'd like to talk about D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die, played on the PC but initially released on Xbox One. D4 is a game brought to us by the offbeat developer Swery65, maker of the cult classic Deadly Premonition. Much like in Swery's last game, D4 puts us in the middle of a murder mystery investigation. This time, however, as former Boston PD investigator David Young. Possessed by the drive to find out who murdered his wife and how it's tied to the mysterious drug Red Blood, David must use his unique ability of diving into the past to gather clues about his wife's murder. With only a small amount of clues and the enigmatic last words "Look for D" from his wife Peggy, David's investigation continues as the opening act of D4. If there was one thing I would consider D4's greatest selling point, it's characterization. Naturally, a murder mystery is a great drawing point for a story, but this game really shines with how characters act and interact with each other. Swery seems to enjoy writing characters with strange quirks and behaviors, and in D4 we see that much more prominently. Everybody has some outlandishly pronounced mannerisms, but characters still interact with each other in meaningful and amusing ways. While many of the characters' behaviors are very obtuse and in some instances rather cartoony, there are parts where each character has a moment to shine as a series contributor to the central story. This attention to personality really helps keep the game memorable, since there's no way you'll be forgetting certain characters with the stunts they pull. The writing itself isn't half bad either. While I'm a huge fan of any murder mystery story, D4 does a lot of neat small things to keep the game unique. The game focuses a lot on small details in very offbeat ways. Naturally, you have small documents and letters scattered around for adding flavor to the world, but players can also observe little bits of trivia during investigations and even cutscenes by hovering over key parts of a character. While it seems like a trivial thing to add, it does a great job at conveying a sense of immersion since players have to actively investigate characters for these small bits of info. Much like Deadly Premonition, you can also take part in side cases that offer a little bit more insight to the overall story and provide some rather interesting stunts from the characters. The details are always the fun part of an adventure game, and Swery clearly had fun adding all this goofy side content into his story. The gameplay for D4 harkens back to the old school days of point-and-click adventure games, with some Owen-done-like QTEs for the more fast-paced segments. Players must navigate through various set pieces and investigate the areas for clues that will help them advance the investigation at hand. Investigations take time and effort though, and players will have to keep an eye on David's health and endurance as they play. During action segments, players must input various actions at opportune times in order to not take enough damage to get a game over. In all honesty though, while I was okay with the adventure game aspect of things, I found the QTE segments somewhat unnecessary since as a whole it felt like a lazy way to tack gameplay onto this game. Now if it feels like I haven't said much about this game, that's because unfortunately D4 isn't exactly done yet. The game is being released in an episodic fashion, however the game has the unfortunate circumstance to premiere as an Xbox One exclusive and have little to no advertising whatsoever. This resulted in the game selling rather poorly initially and raised many questions about the continuation of the plot. The game really only picked up momentum when Playism and Access Games handled the PC port of the game. Luckily, the positive reception from the PC consumer base was enough to get Swery started in the next season of the story, so hopefully we'll be able to see this murder case wrapped up. In either case, if you're a fan of Swery's offbeat humor, enjoy adventure games, or even a fun murder mystery, I would totally recommend checking out D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die. The game is $15 and can be found on Steam, Playism's website, and the Xbox One marketplace, and is well worth the cash in my opinion. The game has personality in spades and the very aspect of things makes it stand out as something unique and fun.